here in Victoria, we're seeing increasingly that so many people are realising that the two old parties of the 20th century increasingly stand for the same things, and they're increasingly tired of it. And you need to look no further than their stance on issues like climate change or planning or water to see just how much the old parties are the parties of the 20th century. And a couple of things really symbolise this for me that have happened over the last little while. One is, if you look in one of the papers today, you'll see a picture in the federal parliament of after the Greens had moved a motion to take comprehensive action on mental health, one of the biggest issues facing us at the moment. We took a vote, and you'll see there that in the picture in the paper today that we had over 140 members of the Labor and Liberal Party occupying one side of the chamber, sitting all there intermingled amongst themselves, and myself and the other crossbenchers there on the other. And another thing that I think symbolises it is the fact that during this election campaign we had John Howard come down here into this electorate and say to members of the Liberal, people who support the Liberal Party, that they should actually vote for Labor, because the Labor Party here is so much like the Liberal government that he led when he was up in Canberra. And if you want a commentary and a condemnation of the current state of the two major parties, it's when the Labor Party requires John Howard to come down here and help boost their election chances. But I'm enormously encouraged by what I've seen here in the papers recently. The published opinion polls show the Greens here going from strength to strength, and tomorrow's election is going to be extraordinarily exciting. And another thing that gives me great encouragement is the candidates that I've worked alongside over the last year campaigning here. We've got Anne running in Northcote, whose knowledge of climate change and water is going to be just incredible for the state parliament. And we've got Brian Walters, who, if you want a principled advocate for the electorate of Melbourne, you know that Brian Walters is going to deliver on that. And of course, Kathleen Maltzahn in Richmond has been able to achieve so much social change and progress so much for issues of social justice already outside of the parliament, that she's going to be extraordinary representative for the people of Richmond when she gets elected inside the parliament. And of course, last but by no means least, a fantastic local whose political nous is extraordinary is Cindy Dawes, who's running for Brunswick, I'm going to hand over to now.
Thanks, Adam. Well, it's fantastic to see so many of our supporters here today, and everyone should be very proud of the work they've done. We have run a stupendous and compelling campaign over this last year, and what we have managed to do is set the agenda. Look around anywhere in the inner city across Victoria, we see that climate change, social justice, equality and public transport have been on the agenda for this election, and we have done that. Together we have done that. We have run a back to basics campaign. You've all been out door knocking, you've had dinners, you've hosted lunches, you've knocked on doors, you've leafleted, you've stood at tram stops, you've stood at train stations, and I know from my time out on the hustings and from what you're telling me that our message about how we want to see change in this state and what we want to see done differently has been resonating, and we are getting really positive responses, and I expect to see those represented tomorrow night in the results. So thank you all very much for all the work you've done all year and for coming today.
So this is going to be, we can safely say even before election night, this is going to be the best Greens campaign ever, and it's going to be reflected in the best Greens vote ever. In addition to what Cindy said about the grassroots campaign of our support base, mobilised like never before across Victoria, there's been an incredible internet campaign. While Labor and Liberal have kept a lot of their ministers and shadow ministers in witness protection this campaign, virtually every one of our candidates had their own Facebook site where they constantly talked about the issues of their electorate that was out there for every other candidate and all of you in the media to see. It's going to be incredibly tight in every upper house seat, we know that. The fifth spot in every upper house seat will come down to a count between the Coalition, the Labor and the Greens. And in the inner city, all published opinion polls, all extrapolations from the federal results say that those inner city seats will also come down to something very close to 50-50, two-party preferred, depending on a range of factors. I'm incredibly excited about this election night. It's the culmination of a quarter century of the Greens' efforts, and to some we're the new thing, but it's been building for a long time and it's never been.
That one of the things that we've learned this year and seen in stark contrast is just how powerful everyone's vote actually is. My election was close, elections in the Senate seats around the country were close, and what we've seen as a result of the Parliament is that you put a Greens voice into the House of Parliament, you get innovation, you get new ideas, you get things being discussed that the major parties are in lockstep on and will not want to discuss. So we've reset the discussion on climate change policy in Australia. We've had a debate about Afghanistan. We've progressed the discussion about same-sex marriage, all by having one Greens in the House of Representatives. And that's because people in the inner areas in Melbourne decided and knew that their vote was powerful. And so we're seeing, as Greg has said, it's going to be a tight race where everyone's vote, instead of being taken for granted, is now going to have enormous impact.